Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio. Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come. Welcome to another episode of Sensational Sunday. I am your girl Elise. Pleased to be here in the studio. I know we are starting a little bit later than usual, but I have heard a familiar saying that, when you're dead, that's when you're really, really, really very late. So I had an emergency and I am just getting started for Sensational Sunday, but never mind, I am here in the space, in this place, and as usual, I am super excited to be here. And I'm in the studio today, and I just want to hang with you, and we are going to be having a little checkup. Today is all of 28 days since we started this brand new year. Somehow it feels as if 2023 has just continued and just continued. We didn't really stop. We are just going and going and going. So I thought as we are winding down to end this month, the very first month of the year, that we would have a little conversation. And we're going to talk about some of the resolutions that we might have made for 2024. I don't know what resolution you would have made, but here are a few, according to Google, that persons make popular ones. Number one, losing weight. Yes. Number two, sticking to a healthier diet. Number three, exercising regularly. Number four, making better financial choices. Number five, quitting smoking if you smoke and spending more time with your family. I don't know what resolutions you might have made this year, but it's a good time to check and see where you are at. If you have probably kind of put in too many things in your plans. Special good afternoon to Pastor Markino. Yes, your girl Elise is hanging in studio, and we're doing a little checkup. We are seeing Where are we with our goals? All these things, the new leaf we're turning over for 2024, how is that going for you? I hope it is going well. But if it's not too late. And maybe if you have packed too many things, just take it easy. One step at a time. Now, today we are going to be hanging together and listening to a presentation, a very interesting one, and you're going to tell me what you think about it. It's all about reinventing yourself for 2024. And we're going to hear what is said right here, and then we can take it right from here and see what you are thinking.
I'm convinced that if you can start implementing them into your life, it's going to help you with your health, your happiness, and the quality of your relationships. One of the most transformative practices I've seen with patients and in my own life is to consciously think about death. And before you switch off, right, I want you to listen to this. One of the reasons I think so many of us take life for granted is because we don't truly recognize that we are going to die. The human life, the human experience is finite. And by knowing it's finite, it gives you license to live. Once you truly understand that, it frees you, it liberates you so you can start living your life. I see this all the time with patients. Let's say they get a cancer diagnosis. And of course, this can be really worrying, really scary, a lot of heartache for all concerned. But one thing I've often seen, whether it's cancer or any other condition, is that these serious diagnoses bring life into sharp focus. Suddenly people realize what really is important. What do I want to spend my life doing? I think half the problem, particularly in countries like the UK or America, is that we hide death away from us. It's in our language. People rarely say that person died. It's that person passed. That person passed away. I lost my father. We hide it. And I think that comes at a huge cost. By hiding death, we don't realize that it does apply to all of us. Until my dad died in 2013, I don't think I genuinely felt that death applied to me or my family. It was the first time ever that I experienced death. First time ever I really went through grief, and I realized, wow, death really does happen. People who you love are going to die. This actually isn't morbid. It's actually really, really liberating. You know, I remember as a child, growing up in the UK, the Indian Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi, was assassinated. And I can remember sitting around the television with my parents, with my brother, watching her funeral. And I still remember you could see the fire. You could see the body burning. It was there. You knew what it was. And I think societies who grow up with death, seeing death, I think it's really, really powerful. Because I think it gives them license to really live.
I don't know. What do you think about this concept of accepting death so that you can be liberating? I don't know. I have listened to this idea and this concept, and I have wondered, you know, as Christians, we believe that we are mortal beings. We know that we are here for a while. And although we started out the conversation talking about New Year's resolutions and just checking where you're at Don't get too discouraged, don't get overwhelmed if you are not where you are. But listen to this conversation by Dr. Ranjan Chatterjee, and he has 5 concepts that he believes can help us in 2024. Let's continue to listen.
Aging world are not talking about that. They're simply trying to say, look, instead of being immobile and dependent in your old age, can we do things right now in our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, our 60s? Can we do things that mean that we're going to age better? And I'm all for that, but I do think we run the risk of becoming obsessed with anti-aging to the point where we stop actually living. One of the most powerful conversations I've ever had on my podcast was with the palliative care nurse, Bronnie Ware. She wrote the book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying, and her findings have really, really moved me. She basically said to me that people at the end of their lives, when they're on their deathbeds, they kind of tend to say the same things. I wish I'd worked less. I wish I spent more time with my friends and family. I wish I'd lived my life and not the lives that other people expected of me. I wish I'd allowed myself to be happy. What's really interesting for me is that these are people who realize these regrets on their deathbeds. But since reading that book, since talking to Bronnie, it's really changed how I approach every single day. I realize that I don't want those regrets. I want to do what's important right now. And that's why so many patients end up coming in to see me. It's because they're taking life for granted. The truly important things in life are only getting fit in when everything else gets done. But these days, our to-do lists are never done. So I've created a very simple exercise. I've done it many times myself. I recommend it to many of my patients. That is absolutely transformative. And I call it Write Your Own Happy Ending. So I'd like you to try it right now. Imagine that you are on your deathbeds. Right now, imagine. Look back on your life. What are 3 things you will want to have done? Or what are 3 things you'll want to have spent time on? For me, I know my answer because I ask myself this question very regularly. For me, I will want to have spent quality time with my wife and my children. I will want to have done something that improves the lives of other people. And I will want to have had time to pursue my own passions. Those are my 3 things: relationships, passions, and doing things for other people. The second part of this exercise is in the present day, right now. And it's about creating 3 weekly happiness habits. You basically use those deathbed thoughts to create 3 habits that, if you did weekly, will give you the happy ending that you've just defined you want. Well, if I want those 3 things on my deathbed, what do I have to do in the here and now to get them? Well, one of my weekly happiness habits is I want to have 5 meals with my wife and children where I'm fully present. That's what works for me. It may not work for you. This is a very personal, individual exercise. But for me, in the context of my life, I know if I have 5 meals each week with my wife and kids where I'm not distracted with work, I'm not distracted with emails, I'm going to be fostering and nurturing those relationships. Doesn't mean I won't do anything else, right? But I've been very clear and I specify it, and it's on my fridge on a sticky note. The second one of my weekly happiness habits is about recording an episode of my podcast. If I record an episode of my podcast each week and I publish it, as I do and have been doing for over 6 years, well, I know that I'm doing something to improve the lives of others. And the third thing for me is, if I have time each week to either go for a long walk in nature or play my guitar and write some songs, then I know
Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come.
how powerful it is because the questions are simple. I challenge you, do both parts of that exercise, either right now or later on today. Maybe encourage other people in your world, your friends, your family, your partner, to do it as well. It brings a real intentionality to your everyday life. And I have my 3 weekly happiness habits written up on the wall. Doesn't mean I can't change them. I can change them over time if I want to. But it means I've got something to aim for each week. I know if I do those 3 things, even if I've got loads left to do, I haven't got through all my emails, I've still got work to get through, I know I'm still winning. I'm still focusing on what's truly, truly important. That exercise has changed my own life, and it's changed the lives of so many of my patients. How much time do you spend on your screen each day? How much time do you spend on your smartphone? So many of my patients come in and they are quite literally addicted to their screens. And often they don't realize the impact those screens are having on their physical health and their mental well-being. In fact, some of the latest research I've seen suggests that actually adults are spending 4 to 5 hours a day on our screens. And for teenagers, it's even more. And there was a study all the way back in 2014 saying that people in the UK back then touched their smartphone over 220 times on any given day. That was almost 10 years ago. It's no doubt going to be higher today. But we kind of know that, don't we? We know we probably look at our screens too much. Of course, sometimes for work we have to. We have to be on a computer all day. But what about when you're not at work? What about when you are in the queue at the coffee shop? What about in the evening when you're with your partner or your family? What about right before bed? Do you have to also be on your screens then? So what are some of the problems with spending so long on our screens? Well, there's a variety of ways you can look at this. There's the impact on us as individuals. What's it doing to us? What's it doing to our
Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio. Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio. Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio. Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio. Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio. Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio. Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio. Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio. Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio.
Well, all of these technology companies understand the principles of human behavior. They know that if they make it easy, you're going to do it. Right? If you're watching Netflix, why does one video go into the next video? Is it out of the goodness of Netflix's heart? No, they're doing what they need to do for their business. they're making it much more likely that before you realize it's 11 p.m. and you've got to be up at 6 a.m. for work, before you realize that, you're already sucked into the next episode. So you stay up for another hour watching it, with a subsequent impact on your sleep, and then your mood, and then your performance the following day. In fact, the Netflix CEO said a few years ago that their biggest competitor was sleep. Just think about that for a minute. Their biggest competitor is sleep, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, one of the reasons why sleep problems just weren't that much of an issue, to the best of our knowledge, 10,000 years ago or so, is because when it was the end of the day, when it got dark, we might have a campfire, we might switch off and relax, talk, exchange stories, dance, be creative, but there wasn't that much else to do. Sleep wasn't competing with screen time. So you would naturally feel tired and fall asleep. Naturally. Whereas actually today, you have to actively make a decision. A lot of us don't realize that the light from our screens is keeping us up. We know that light is a very powerful modulator of what we call our body's circadian rhythm. Think about it. You wake up in the morning, let's say in the summer, you go outside, there's sun there, there's light. That sends a signal to all the cells in your body that it's daytime now. It wakes your body up. It helps to coordinate all of the different clocks in the different cells of your body. But we also need that signal of darkness at night. So for many of us, these screens are keeping us up later. So instead of feeling tired, we actually think, no, I'm not tired yet. But it's the light from those screens that is doing it, but it's also the cognitive stimulation. Instead of winding down and exchanging stories and being with our loved ones, we're often still working. Or we go on social media, we read something negative and get into an argument with someone online. Of course we're going to have trouble sleeping. What about if you watch the news right before bed? If you're someone who struggles with your sleep and you watch the news before bed and you are ruminating in bed and worrying about the state of the world, maybe watching the news last thing at night is not helping you. Why would you infuse that negativity into your brain before you go to sleep? So the reality is, for pretty much all of my patients, reducing their screen time, particularly in the evening, has quite a transformative effect on their physical health and their mental well-being. Now, we're living in a sleep deprivation epidemic, no question about it. Scientists from Oxford University say that we are sleeping 1 to 2 hours less than 60 years ago. We may have lost up to 25% of our sleep. It's absolutely incredible. And what happens when we don't sleep well? What happens to you when you haven't slept well? Are you patient? Are you calm? Are you able to focus? Are you productive? No. You see, when we don't sleep well, so many systems in the body get affected. We have a reduced ability to pay attention. Our focus is down. Our concentration is down. We show less empathy. We're less creative. We eat more. Yeah, that's right, we eat more. The research shows us that if you're sleeping 5.5 hours a night compared to, let's say, 7.5 or 8 hours a night, on average, you eat 22% more calories the following day. So 5 days of sleep deprivation means that you could be eating a whole extra day's worth of calories each week just from sleep deprivation. And that's because of sleep deprivation's effects on the hormones leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin is a hunger hormone. Leptin is a satiety hormone. So screens affect us in so many ways. And I can say this to you. You can hear it. You can read a blog. You can read an article. But the problem is, because they're so prevalent and because they're so addictive, so many of us don't make any changes. So what's it going to take for you to start making some changes? What steps are you going to put into place in your life, which mean you're not on your screens as much, particularly in the evenings? Because that's going to have a transformative effect on your health, your happiness, and the quality of your relationships. Now, what about screen use in the day? See, one of the things I think that is affecting people the most these days is the fact that our downtime has been eroded out of our lives. We need downtime. Our brains love downtime. Have you ever taken a shower or been in the bath and come up with some of your best ideas? Have you ever gone for a walk and suddenly a problem that you were trying to solve, you've suddenly managed to solve? Well, that's because there's a part of your brain that we call the default mode network, or the DMN, that kicks into gear when you're not focusing on a specific task. And that part of the brain is responsible for all kinds of things. Two of those things are, it helps you be more creative and it helps you solve problems. So one of the big problems these days is because we're so focused on our screens all the time, we take them everywhere with us, we don't allow that part of the brain to kick in. And that's why so many of us come up with our best ideas in the shower, because it's one of the few spaces that are left available to us where we don't take our phones in. So we allow that part of the brain to kick in. It helps you feel less stressed. You're more productive. You feel happier afterwards. Just think, wherever you live, imagine 30 years ago going into one of your local coffee shops. What would be happening? Well, you'd go in, people would be chatting. You might be waiting in a queue. You'd be looking around. You might bump into someone you know. What happens today? Everyone's got their head down. Everyone's looking at their screens. Everyone's trying to take a quick moment, get a few emails done, have a cheeky check on social media. I get it. In isolation, there's nothing wrong with those things. But when you add it into everything that's going on in society and how much we're looking at our screens, it starts to become really toxic, because those are micro moments where you could be switching off. You could be allowing yourself to breathe, your mind to breathe, your brain's default mode network to kick in. But you've got to give it that downtime. So I think our overuse of screens is affecting our sleep, which then is affecting our health and our relationships. But it's also affecting the way our brains work. It's also affecting the levels of stress we feel. That's why I think so many of us feel burnt out and overloaded and overstimulated, because we're not having those little moments of downtime. So how can you start to bring those things in? Look, a few years ago, I had a patient, a 16-year-old chap called Devon, who came in to see me. And it was him and his mum saying, listen, the hospital has asked us to come in so you can prescribe an antidepressant. And it was really interesting to me because I knew this family pretty well. I was totally shocked that this kid had ended up in the emergency room. I spent a lot of time with him that day. I asked him to come back the next day so I could spend longer to really understand what was going on. And of course I did all the checks that I have to do as a medical doctor. But it was really clear to me that there were certain things going on in his life that could be affecting his mental well-being. One of those things was his screen use. So I had a chat with him. And I said, look, would you consider reducing how much time you're spending on your screens each day? And he goes, well, do you think it's going to make a difference? I said, it might do. And so what we started off with was 1 hour before he went to bed in the evening.
I know you're still tuned into Sensational Sunday. I'm your girl Elise, and today we are having a little chit chat and we're having a conversation regarding New Year resolutions. I know we're 28 days in, and the new year is just moving so quickly. But when you think about it, we are so overwhelmed with this thing called life, and we do suffer from burnout. We spend a lot of time on our screens. What if we should have a little bit of balance, some downtime, as Doc is telling us about? That is important to get those creative juices flowing. If we could be conscious, sometimes, especially if you're going to a function and maybe you don't know everyone there, a quick, what you do is just look on your phone. Rather than trying to meet a new person, you'll be probably checking messages, being on social media, and not interacting. It's one of those things now that we have to be training younger people on soft social skills, how to interact with people. Wow, what a world we're living in. Is there a chance that we could make a new year a resolution? Let's spend less time on our screens. Let's hear a little bit more. We're getting ready to get out of the studio, but let's hear a few more words, a few more
He's
pearls
doing
of
things in his
wisdom.
local community at weekends. And it was all down to these changes. That first change was changing his relationship with his screens. Now, I could give you countless stories of other teenagers, other adults, people in middle age, who are also improving their lives when they reset their relationship with their screens. So I'd really encourage you, have a think. Where could you do this? Where can you start to make a change? Could you have some rules at home? That over the dinner table, you're never going to have any screens. That's the rule I have in my house. I'm married, I've got 2 young children. We have a rule. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, when we're eating them, there are no screens or smartphones allowed at the table. Now, if that sounds a bit draconian, think back to 20 years ago. Did you have screens at the dinner table then? No, for the bulk of human history, we didn't. But somehow we've allowed this kind of sacred place, the dinner table, to be infiltrated with screen time, so people are being distracted. This is a massive, massive issue for relationships. I have seen so many patients over the years who tell me that their marriages are under strain. And more times than I can remember, the cause was screen time use in the evenings. I remember one lady who said, look, I try and talk to my husband in the evening. We're sitting in the kitchen after the children have gone to bed, but I can't really talk to him because he keeps looking at his screen. And he says, I've got to do my work emails, but it means that they're physically in the same space together, but emotionally, mentally, they're a million miles away. And actually, really, by them setting some ground rules in place, no screens in the kitchen, if her husband wanted to do some emails, he would go into their study and do it at a laptop. And at the weekends, they went for 1-2 hour walk together without their phones, transformed their relationship. There was no underlying problem. It was the screen time that was distracting them from what was truly important. Another impactful change you can make is to not bring those screens into your bedroom. Look, I get it's hard. I get that it's tempting. But you've got to understand that the brain is what we call an associative organ. The brain associates certain behaviors with certain locations. So if, for example, you do work emails on your phone in bed, your brain associates your bedroom and your bed with your work, which can make it harder to switch off. Not impossible, some people manage, but if you're struggling, that could be one of the 'Taking notifications off all of your apps. Life-changing. I did that maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I haven't looked back. It means if I pick up my phone to make a phone call, I don't know if I've got 20 emails or 0 emails. I don't know if I've got 20 Instagram notifications or 0 notifications because I switched the notifications off. And that allows me to be in control of my technology rather than the technology being in control of me. On my podcast a couple of years ago, I spoke to Professor Laurie Santos from Yale. She shared some research with me saying that deciding to stay off social media can have a bigger effect on your happiness than earning $100,000 a year or marrying the love of your life. It's absolutely incredible. And that's why I'm trying so hard to persuade you and hopefully inspire you to go, you know what? Enough's enough. I'm sick of the fact that these smartphones are infiltrating every single aspect of my life. I'm going to make a change. And hopefully some of these changes will help you do that. And that's why I really want you to think about your own screen use. Is it affecting your health? Is it affecting your relationships? There was actually a study that I read in America last year, which showed that when kids went around a museum with their parents, the experience was completely different when their parents didn't have a phone with them. Mm-hmm. The parents enjoyed it more, the children enjoyed it more, and afterwards they felt there was a much more meaningful and deeper connection. Let's be honest. The quality of our relationships determines, in a huge part, the quality of our lives. And screen time, for many of us, is absolutely getting in the way. So I hope this encourages you to think a little bit differently and think about what you can do to change that. Now, if we think about screen time and computers and laptops, it's all inward, right? We go in and we look. The opposite of that is outwardness, expansiveness. And that's what nature provides. Nature is the antidote. We know that nature, being in nature, is very, very good for us as humans. There's many reasons for that. There's a lot of research on something called fractals. Fractals are these geometric shapes that you only see in nature. You don't get them in man-made buildings or materials. You get them in rivers, trees, leaves, coastlines, bodies of water. And scientific research shows us that when a human eye looks at a fractal, levels of the stress hormone cortisol start to drop. Simply being in nature reduces your levels of stress. Just taking a quick break to give a shout out to
Yes. So important, this conversation that we are having today. Yes, you are live on Sensational Sunday, and we are doing just a little checkup. It's important to be honest with ourselves and know where we are. We started by just highlighting a few of the more popular resolutions that people make when they're beginning a new year. We are already at the end of the first month in 2024. I am not sure what resolutions you would have made. The new year, frequently we are tempted to decide whether we want to lose weight, whether we want to spend more time with family, whether we want to take care of our health, to exercise more. Whatever the resolutions are, yes, we made them. But truly, what are the things that are important? Today we explore the concept of recognizing first your mortality and living life with that knowledge to know you do not have forever on this earth. So with the limited time that you have, how do you spend it? And so we are listening to this very interesting discourse by Dr. Rangan, and it has been so inspiring and interesting. What can we do differently in 2024? Let's continue to take a listen.
Near really nice bits of nature. Some people live in very urban environments, in the middle of a city. I get it. If that's you, have a think, are there any green spaces near your house? Can you get out there for a walk? Even if you can't, is there a tree outside your window? I mentioned that just looking at a fractal can lower levels of the stress hormone cortisol. So even if you just looked out and stared at a tree, you're still going to get some benefits. So really do think about reducing your screen time in whatever way you can. Put some rules into your life about when you are going to look, when you're not going to look. I mentioned before bed, but also first thing in the morning. Can you do an hour without a screen in the morning? If not an hour, can you do 5 minutes? Even just 5 minutes first thing in the morning without any technology, just to be with yourself. Maybe you can read, do some breath work, some meditation, do some journaling, whatever it might be. Less screen time, more nature time, and your health and happiness will immediately start to improve. The next tip, which I have seen be profoundly transformative for my patients and for myself, is eliminating unnecessary choice in our lives. Now, this may sound a little bit counterintuitive. Why would you want to eliminate choice? Isn't choice a good thing? Isn't more choice even better? I get to choose what I want to do. And first of all, I want to just recognize here that some people are living lives where they have no control, they have no autonomy, they don't have enough choice. I do understand that. If that's you, then this tip may not apply. But if that's not you, and you are feeling stressed out, overwhelmed, anxious, you find that you're procrastinating, you can't make decisions, you can't move forward, you feel stuck, I bet that too much choice is playing a role. We have to make decisions on everything these days. Studies suggest that we're making over 35,000 choices a day. Other research says that we make over 220 choices a day on food alone. It's overwhelming. And one thing we really have to understand is that every time you're making a choice, it's taking up some of your cognitive capacity. You may have heard me talk in previous podcasts or in previous videos about something called micro-stress doses. Right? These are little hits of stress that in isolation we can deal with just fine. But when those doses go on top of one another, they build up, they mount up, they get us closer to our own personal stress threshold. And when we get to our threshold, that's when things go wrong. That's when we fall out with a work colleague. We have a row with our partner. Our back goes into spasm. Our neck starts to ache. And we often think it was the last thing that we did that was the problem. But it usually wasn't. It was the build-up of these micro-stress doses throughout the day. Every time you make a choice that doesn't matter, that's a micro-stress dose. You're getting yourself closer and closer to that personal stress threshold where things start to go wrong. And a simple way of keeping you away from that stress threshold is to make less choices, especially on the things that don't matter. You know, President Barack Obama, Mark Zuckerberg, these guys are famous people who are well known for wearing the same thing every single day. So they can save their cognitive capacity for decisions that matter. Eliminating choice from your life will have so many benefits. You make better decisions when you don't have to choose on everything. There was some more research showing that for food companies, if they offer 28 flavors of a food product compared to 5 or under, sales go down. When they offer just 3 4 or 5 flavors, sales go through the roof. Because if you've got choice, if you've got infinite choice, you're always wondering, did I make the right one? Would that other choice have been better? And often you then procrastinate and end up doing nothing. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times in the past when my wife and I, on a Saturday evening, once our children were in bed, would sit down on the sofa, put on Netflix with a view to watching something. The amount of times. An hour later, we still can't decide because of all the choice. Our moods are a little bit off, and we decide to forget it. Too much choice, especially today, it is real. I'm not saying never choose. I'm saying choose when it matters. Look, I'm a doctor. So people's health is something that's very, very important to me. Now let's take something like, I don't know, exercise. We know that moving our bodies more is better for us. It's better for our physical health. And many people now realize it's very good for our mental well-being as well. But what often happens, and I've seen this with so many patients over the years, what often happens is this. Let's say people are online. Let's say they're on Instagram. And they follow someone who says that yoga is amazing. They follow someone else who says Pilates is amazing. They follow someone else who says, I run and do 5Ks each week. Someone else does strength training. And it's overwhelming. They're like, yeah, God, that yoga sounds good. Pilates sounds good. Running sounds good. Walking sounds good. Strength training sounds good. Which is the best one? And they try and weigh up the decisions. In the meantime, they're not doing anything. They're not moving their bodies. The truth is, they all have benefits if you do them. Most of us are better just picking one and doing it consistently, regularly. I honestly believe that variety is overrated. You can simplify your life in so many different ways by eliminating choice. In my patients, one of the commonest sources of stress for people who are trying to be healthy is asking themselves, what am I going to cook tonight? In this world of endless choice, what am I going to cook the family tonight? Well, one way out of that is to have a meal planner. Have the same meal, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Have a different meal and just repeat it week after week. You know what you're having. You don't have to decide at your weekly shop. It's simple. You know what you need on which day. Again, I want to emphasize, that may not be something that's relevant in your life, but I'm pretty sure that too much choice is adding to your stress load in some way. So some simple things you can think about are, write a meal planner. Wear the same clothes every day. If you listen to podcasts, as I do, if you go on a podcast app now, right, and try and decide what to listen to, you've got limitless choice. There's something like 2 or 3 million podcasts there. How on earth are you meant to choose? It's actually quite stressful to look at them and go, what am I going to listen to? I've been in that boat before. Some of my favorite podcasts are, that episode looks good. That one looks good. Which one am I going to do? And even if you choose a good one, you still feel like you're missing out. So what I do now, I have 3 podcasts that I subscribe to. Just listen to them. I don't look at anything else. I've got 3 podcasts I subscribe to, which give me the content, the quality, and the variety that I want. And I just stick to them. They are good enough. Of course, there are other great podcasts out there, but those 3 work for me. If you're someone who also can't decide what film to watch on a Saturday evening, well, one thing I've started doing over the last years is when I get a recommendation from someone, whether it's on a podcast or a friend, I open up my notes app and I make a list. So if I'm ever sitting down in front of the television with time with my wife, I have a ready-made list of films that I want to watch. Now, these things, they sound really, really simple, but they are very, very effective. They simplify your life in so many different ways. I promise, if you start eliminating choice, unnecessary choice from your life, it's going to improve things. But if you're someone who likes to go out and eat in restaurants, do you have a favorite restaurant that you go to? I do. There's a cafe in my local town that I like going to. You know what? There's one meal there I really, really like. I just have it every time I go. Now, you may be someone who really values variety in your food. Okay, fine. That may not be the right choice for you, but for me, it is. For me, I don't even look. I go there, I say hi to the staff. I say just the usual, please. If you're someone who drinks wine, let's say, and you go to a restaurant, do you spend ages trying to decide which one of these wines shall I have? Well, if you're a wine connoisseur and that matters to you, that may be a choice.
Such an interesting concept, this episode of Sensational Sunday. Just reminding you, listeners, viewers, if you're just logging on, we are checking where we are at. We are already almost at the end of January, and we would have made some plans and would have made some promises, but we start to consider what is truly important, what is truly important to you and to life, what is truly important to your happiness. And one of the takeaway I would love for you to get from this discourse this afternoon, this Sensational Sunday, it's not one size fits all. Your journey in life might not be the same as your brother or your sister. You may not have to walk the same road, and your experiences are different. Thank God for them anyway. Don't try to always fit in the other shoe. No, no, no. That's not how God planned it. He tailor-made your life and your experiences for you. So I want to encourage you. We have come to another wonderful episode of Sensational Sunday. I hope you have been blessed as I have truly been blessed. I've been encouraged by this episode and by this conversation this afternoon. I know that you will share the link so that someone will hear how important it is to eliminate stress from your life so that you can live healthy in 2024, that you can go and have a successful life. All the choices that we feel that we need to make, perhaps we don't need to make them at all. So I want to thank you again for tuning in. I want to encourage you to stay connected. Stay connected with Flashpoint 24/7's breakfast hour comes up tomorrow all week, Monday to Friday at 6:30. Be sure to connect with us. Be sure to share the link and be a part of something incredible, something spectacular, something amazing. So I want to encourage you to have yourself a wonderful day. Remember, put your trust in God. Just keep on going, one step at a time, not giant steps. God is able to keep you through all the mountains and through the valleys. Have yourself a wonderful day. Remember to catch your girl Elise next week, Sunday at 3 p.m. for another episode of Sensational Sunday. Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio.